So now fake news is something that we hear a lot about, especially from Trump supporters. They, of course, continue to yell it out every time that there is an article or a news broadcast or something that is critical of the president. In fact, of course, they continue to decry all news, whether it be left or centrist in the case of CNN or part of the establishment or anti-Trump. It's all fake news. Doesn't matter. If it's anything that's critical to the president, fake news, fake news, fake news. Well, it turns out that according to a new study from the University of Oxford, Trump supporters are actually the biggest consumers of what we would call fake news. Awesome. Now, they said the study from the university's computational propaganda project looked at the most significant sources of what they call junk news. So this is in The Guardian. Now, they looked at this, and they looked at the junk news shared in the 3 months leading up to Donald Trump's first State of the Union address this January, and they tried to find out who was sharing it and why. Okay. Now, on Twitter, a network of Trump supporters consumes the largest volume of junk news, the report concluded, and junk news is the largest proportion of news links they share. On Facebook, the skew was even greater. Their extreme hard-right pages, distinct from Republican pages, share more junk news than all other audiences put together. Fascinating. Now, the research involved monitoring a core group of around 13,500 politically active U.S. Twitter users and a separate group of 48,000 public Facebook pages. So that's a pretty large sample size, right? Now, they wanted to find out what external websites that they were sharing. Now, users who shared similar collections of links were grouped together depending on what they were discussing on Twitter. Some identified include conservative media, Trump supporters, which is a distinct group from Republican Party, and resistance on Facebook. That's, of course, more the left wing, or centrist, as I would call them. And those audience also groups also included on Facebook conservative, women's rights, and military and / guns. Now, not surprisingly, the two main political parties, Democrats and Republicans, the researchers write, prefer different sources of political news with limited overlap. Now, the researchers also labeled 91 different sites as, quote, junk news. Now, they based that classification on breaching at least 3 or 5 quality standards, including what they call professionalism, bias, and credibility. Now, what did they find on that one? They find that the Trump support group consumes the highest volume of junk news sources on Twitter and spreads more junk news sources than all the other groups put together. This pattern is repeated on Facebook, where the hard conservatives group consume the highest proportion of junk news. Hey, so big surprise, turns out Breitbart and www.hillaryissatan.com aren't exactly reliable sources of information. Who would have figured that one out? Now, what's interesting is there's another finding here that kind of goes a little bit after the left narrative. You're going to love this. And the reason I bring this up is because we've seen Democrats and Twitter and Facebook, you know, Mark Zuckerberg and all that, try to crack down on what they call Russian links, right? Blaming them for the majority of fake news. We're going to load this. One thing this study did not find is evidence of substantial amounts of Russian news sources being shared. Now, I love that because, again, Facebook and Twitter release these things. Are you getting your news from Russians? Just to check to see if you've been misled. And it turns out, no. Most people are not getting their news sources from Russians. Again, not a surprise, but there are a lot of people on the left, specifically centrist Twitter, for example, donut Twitter, that are saying, you're getting your news from fake Russian sites. We need to crack down. We need to crack down. No, the researchers concluded that the political conversations on social media exclude a Russian audience group. It's not the Russians. It's not the Russians spreading propaganda. It's your Trump-loving uncle. So how about, like, instead of targeting RT, which, look, I understand, is Russia Today, but also has a lot of left-wing news sources on there. And they play Tom Hartman, they play Redacted Tonight, things like that. How about instead of targeting just them, maybe we actually deal with the real purveyors of fake news, the hard right in this country that we have, of course, ignored. Look, I'm not saying that we should censor them. I'm not saying we should censor anybody. That includes people funded or stations funded by other governments. What we should be doing is stop giving these hard right ideas any kind of credibility. We should stop treating them as if they are credible news sources. Stop treating Breitbart as if it's credible. Stop treating InfoWars as if it was credible at all. And look, CNN can start by not hiring Trump supporters to spew bullshit. And how about we stop putting on people like Sebastian Gorka from hard right media? How about we stop doing that? Look, I know arguing with morons is great for ratings, but seriously, that doesn't make anybody even more informed. No, it makes people less informed, and it gives people with terrible points of view a platform. So we've got to put a stop to that, right? Now, other than that, I don't know how you can stop people from believing in pig-gorilla hybrids, like on Alex Jones, right? Somebody out there is always going to believe incredibly crazy, stupid things. I mean, you got flat earthers out there. So there's always going to be a section of America that is insane. The best we can do is just, look, go and try to tell people the truth. And at least let them decide, right? Because no matter what you do, a decent percentage of Americans, I think, are going to believe in crazy things. So the best thing we can do is counter that with actual facts. Hey everybody, thanks for watching this video. If you want to see more like this, please hit the subscribe button below. And if you want to support truly independent progressive media, please consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/TYTNation.